Welcome to Born to Win. I'm Brian Proctor. I've created these podcast episodes around timeless principles that I learned from my father, Bob Proctor. And when understood and applied, these principles can change the direction of your life. Today we continue our series on the laws of life, universal principles that are always operating, whether you're aware of them or not. We've explored rhythm, cause and effect, gender, the perpetual transmutation of energy, polarity, and in episode 13 of the Born to Win podcast, I discussed the law of vibration and its secondary law, the law of attraction. So today, we move into the final law of this series, the law of relativity. When you understand this law, you will find that it eases the burden of emotional weight that gets placed on your circumstances. Because this law teaches something you may not consciously realize, and that is this: nothing has meaning until it is compared to something else. Moving through life with this understanding can free you from unnecessary suffering, emotional overwhelm, and self-imposed limitations. Because the law of relativity states everything is relative. Every experience gains meaning through comparison. No situation is inherently big or small, good or bad, easy or difficult, until the mind compares it to something else. That is important to understand because most people are not reacting to reality itself. They are reacting to their interpretation of reality. Think about this. A person who has never lifted weights before may struggle lifting 20 pounds. For someone who has trained for years, 20 pounds feels insignificant. Nothing is large or small. It is our experience and thinking around that experience that makes it so. Think about temperature. Someone living in Arizona might call 60 degrees cold. Someone living in Alaska may call it mild or even warm. Same temperature, different perception, different comparison, different experience. This law becomes significant when you begin applying it to your problems, your goals, your emotions, and even your identity, because often we suffer not because of what is happening, but because of what we are comparing it to. Never let a problem become bigger than you are. Now think about that. It's easy to magnify problems simply by obsessing over them and comparing them to others. That is a real recipe for feeling sorry for yourself. If you stare at a problem long enough, it begins to feel enormous, permanent, and sometimes overwhelming. But the problem itself may not be what's crushing. It's your relationship to it. This is where another one of the higher mental faculties becomes essential: reason. Reason allows you to step back from emotional reaction and evaluate something more objectively. Instead of immediately concluding this is terrible, reason can ask, compared to what? That question gives you space to widen your view. My father taught that your higher faculties separate you from living reactively through the senses alone. Animals, they react instinctively. Human beings have the ability to reason, perceive, imagine, and to develop intuition, memory, and will. And the law of relativity becomes incredibly empowering when you apply reason before reaction. Again, it is that pause that hands you the opportunity to choose. Think about standing beside a skyscraper. You stand directly at the base looking up. It feels massive, almost overwhelming. But if you view the same building from an airplane, it looks small in comparison to the entire city. The building didn't change, your position changed. And position, when considered, is what changes perception. Most people get emotionally trapped in their circumstances because they stand too close to their problems. They lose perspective. Everything feels immediate, heavy, and absolute. But relativity teaches us that perspective can change emotional intensity. Psychologists study something called cognitive appraisal, the process by which people interpret events and assign emotional meaning to them. Two people can experience the exact same event, yet have completely different emotional responses. Why is that? Because the brain evaluates the meaning differently. Again, same circumstance, different interpretation, different experience. This law also helps explain why comparison can become so destructive, especially today when social media constantly puts the seduction of comparison on display. You are repeatedly exposed to carefully curated images of other people's success, lifestyle, relationships, and achievements. And if you are not aware, it becomes easy to measure your real life against someone else's highlight reel. That comparison pulls your attention away from your own growth and places it on someone else's path. Instead of creating, you begin measuring. Instead of building, you begin doubting, and that shift in focus drains energy that could have been directed toward your own development and goals. It takes real self-control not to fall into comparison. Comparison around income, relationships, appearance, success, timelines, and in today's world, those comparisons are constantly being placed in front of us. But the moment you begin measuring your life against someone else's path, you disconnect from your own. You stop focusing on your growth and start questioning your worth. That is why awareness matters so much, because comparison rarely inspires. More often, it distracts, discourages, and drains your energy away from what you are meant to be building. Without awareness, it is easy to emotionally collapse under comparisons that were never meant to define. Because when you compare yourself to others without awareness, you begin measuring your worth against appearances. And appearances rarely tell the full story. The law of relativity reminds you to stop measuring your journey against someone else's chapter. Because growth and timing, it's individual. Experience is individual, and your journey is only yours. Now let's bring this back to the equation that we've used throughout this series. Your thoughts plus your feelings equal your actions, and your actions equal your results. Relativity affects the entire equation because comparison influences your thoughts, your emotional state, your confidence, your decisions, and those things shape your results. This is another reason why gratitude becomes such an impactful practice. Gratitude shifts your point of comparison. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you begin recognizing what's already present. And when you truly feel gratitude deep in your heart, you immediately change your emotional experience. Think about using the zoom feature on your phone camera. Zoom in too closely on anything and it begins to lose context. Small details start looking enormous. But when you zoom out, you see the full picture again. Many people are mentally zoomed in on one difficult moment, one setback, one mistake, and because of that, they lose sight of everything else that is working. Their view of their life becomes myopic. Relativity teaches you to zoom out. This does not mean pretending difficult situations don't exist. It means understanding that no circumstance should be evaluated in isolation. Everything exists within a larger context. It's taking the view that problems can be opportunities for growth disguised as discomfort. But you only see that when you stop emotionally collapsing into the comparison and instead ask, what is this helping me develop? That question can change your relationship to the experience. Think about learning to swim. The first time someone steps into deep water, it can feel terrifying. But after enough experience, through exposure, what once felt dangerous begins to feel manageable, eventually even natural. What changed? Not the water, the person. Their awareness expanded. Their skill and comfort increased. Their relationship to the experience changed. That's relativity. The law of relativity also teaches humility. Because the moment you think, my problems are the worst, perspective reminds you, every person is carrying something. Everyone is navigating challenges you cannot see. Approaching life with this awareness creates compassion. And compassion shifts energy. It shifts the experience. When you stop seeing yourself as uniquely burdened, you begin reconnecting to resilience. One of the biggest emotional traps people fall into is permanence. They assume this feeling will last forever. This challenge defines them. This season is permanent. But relativity, it reminds us conditions change. Perspective changes. Meaning changes. Think about driving through dense fog. When you're inside it, visibility feels limited. You feel closed in and you can't see very far ahead. It's easy and natural to feel uncertain, but the fog is not the whole environment. It's simply the current condition. Above the fog, the sky is still clear. The road still exists. The destination hasn't disappeared. Your visibility is temporarily limited. This condition will pass. That's all. Relativity reminds you not to confuse temporary visibility with permanent reality. This law becomes especially important during difficult emotional periods because emotions distort perspective. A temporary feeling can suddenly feel so heavy that you can't see around it. A setback can feel final. A delay can feel like failure. But when you apply your higher mental faculty of reason, you create the space to ask, is this absolutely true? Or is this just how it feels right now? The space that this question creates restores perspective. Your ability to identify and regulate your emotions greatly influences the quality of your life. And emotional control or regulation does not mean suppressing feelings. It means learning not to become consumed by them to the point where you are reacting rather than choosing how you want to show up. Understanding the law of relativity helps you do that because it reminds you this moment is not the whole story. This condition is not the final outcome. This challenge exists within a larger process, and you can choose the meaning you assign. So how do you practically apply this law? You begin interrupting exaggerated comparison. You pause and you question emotional conclusions. You widen your perspective intentionally. So here's your Born to Win practice for this week. The next time you feel emotionally overwhelmed by a situation, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, compare to what? Number 2, identify what you are feeling. And number 3, will this matter the same way a year from now? Number 4, what might this situation be helping me develop? And finally, number 5, choose how you want to show up. Then consciously zoom out mentally. Look at the bigger picture. Look at how far you've already come. Look at what is still working. Understand and live by this law, and you will stop unnecessarily magnifying problems. And you begin strengthening perspective intentionally. My father taught me something years ago that stayed with me. He said the only way a problem can defeat you is if you believe it's bigger than you are. That's relativity. And when you stop measuring yourself against outside circumstances and start measuring yourself against who you were yesterday, you will live your life with greater calm and peace. So let me leave you with this. What if the thing you're currently overwhelmed by only appears overwhelming because of the way you're measuring it? Because when perspective changes, your experience changes, and that changes your direction. Thank you for joining me today on Born to Win. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who could use a reminder of their own inner greatness. It also helps me to reach more people if you rate and follow this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Brian Proctor Official. And remember, success isn't about luck or timing. It's about alignment. You were designed for success, built for expansion, and born to win. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, think big, trust yourself, and keep growing.